Hi, everybody. Frank Speiser, CEO and co-founder of Metafide, doing a recap this week with our co-founder, Chief Business Development Officer, Matt Cross. And we spoke today on the spaces about politicians dropping meme tokens, AI, predictive tools in startup land, and what's good and what's not, what to be wary of. And then we spent a good bit of time thinking about sort of what it was going to be like when real world assets and equities get tokenized and then can be fractionalized across a 24/7 trading environment. So quite a bit to go over, quite a bit to recap, but I think that space is probably worth listening to all the way through because we bring up a lot of stuff that people should pay attention to that can kind of keep them out of some trouble. So that's one of the ones where if you're looking to de-risk your investments, especially trying to navigate the Web3 space, I'd suggest listening to that one. So, how do you think it went, Matt?
I think it went pretty good today. We discussed some interesting topics. We discussed what does it mean for a president to launch a meme token or any other politician. We thought it was good and also bad. It's definitely good for crypto founders out there because it starts to show that there is a pathway to innovate. And also, when these guys are launching tokens, it makes them as guilty or as tied to the laws as any other founder in the state. And so if they could do it, you can do it. But what we also saw is it can be, bad for some of these candidates, especially amongst the public when their token drops below the original value. It leaves a negative sentiment in everybody's, mouth. And also when you are, launching tokens in the space without a utility, a majority of the time, it's just utilizing your public image to gather money from specific audiences, which might not always be fair.
Yeah. Although one thing that came up that I didn't say during the space because we had to switch topics is I think there is a little bit of utility around politicians launching meme tokens, and you just touched on it, which is it gives the global community a way to voice displeasure or support with it. So it's not a totally useless use case, right? It's where if everybody is generally behind the brand of that politician, it does give some indication of, if there are a group of people out there that find them favorable or just want to, you know, just short them essentially. So you can go out there and if you don't like the politician, you can wreck the token along with everybody else. And that shows them kind of what they think. But if you're a politician that goes out, you launch a meme token, it gets a massive support, then maybe everybody should listen to that because it's people who not necessarily just vote or whatever, but it's people putting money behind something that are showing it. So I think there is something to be said for politicians doing that. It's almost acts as a proxy vote for how people think they're doing. But at the same time, like you said, just cashing in off your image and likeness because you got voted into office, that's not that cool. And I think I don't think it's going to work out very well for too many of them. So it's not like politicians are universally loved anyway. And I think people will look for any reason to short it anytime that there's an opportunity to do it. So yeah, we also talked about finding talent in the space and whether or not we thought it was worthwhile for Wall Street as it moves into the space to look into the Web3 community for talent and strategy and some guidance, especially becoming familiar with the culture. Now, Wall Street's really smart. I've said it here before. You can't bank on Wall Street to be lazy or for it to be dumb, right? The motivation to acquire assets and make money is just too great. And if there's too many incentives in that industry to expect it to just sit there and let it happen to them. But I do think there's a gap. And I think where we settled was is that you got to have somebody who's familiar with the ecosystem on a very native level. Like otherwise, it's you're gonna get thrown around quite a bit. So I think that you'll see people in Wall Street and in London and in Paris like starting to reach out to experts in the blockchain and Web3 space so it can help them understand like, all right, should we start to figure this out? Is this going to work? Is this tokenization strategy going to work? I mean, what are really your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, I think with anything, there's always innovation in a space. And what we've seen in the past with Wall Street is that high frequency trading came about. And when that did, it reinvented the game. And then people had to catch up with the technology and utilize those same strategies. Same thing when machine learning came out into these markets. You had to have your own quant who's able to run machine learning models and various AI models to be able to compete in the market. And the same thing goes with crypto. It's a faster financial rails. And because of that, it's also running 24 hours out of the day, 365 days out of the year. And Wall Street, which existingly had 6.5 hour markets, now has to keep up with that constant demand. And so they're going to have to evolve in the ways of their learning and technology to meet the current demands of the market.
Yeah, we did talk about that too, where you're going to have the markets close on a Friday, and they don't open up again till 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on a Monday, where all these tokenized assets are not going to be restricted. You're going to have a lot of activity around them. So sometimes people are going to miss the run-ups that these assets are providing on the tokenized side. And then sometimes the markets and the tokenization side are going to speak and short them or push them down and sell them out. And then everybody's going to be sitting there at market open on Monday, just waiting to rinse these things out. And I think it actually opens up a bit of an opportunity for, you know, other nation states and groups to come in and start to manipulate the market even more. So I I think what we might see from that is, people are, I think it's going to be a lukewarm reception in the beginning until Wall Street figures out how to make that work for it. But it's going to democratize the system to such a degree that we're all going to see it. And if you want to participate in that after hours trading that typically like we don't have after hours trading in crypto, but the market side of the Wall Street trading practice, uh, they're not going to be able to work those 6.5 hour sessions and then still be on top of it. You're going to have a lot going on, especially between Friday close and Monday open, that doesn't really exist in the market right now. And I think it's going to take a little while to get used to that. Again, if they're not already doing it, they need to be ready. If you're on Wall Street right now, you run a trading desk, you need to be staffing for those other off hours so that you can at least communicate the direction and signal back to the people who are trying to run your strategy. If you're not doing that, you're going to be left in the dust, and it's going to take you. You might not ever catch up. Like once that switch happens. So those are my 2 cents, Matt. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, it's a global world. We're now all connected by the internet. We can't have 6.5 hours determine what happens with the market, especially when we've allowed all these global participants to dump their money into our markets as well. Something could happen completely out of that range of hours, and people should be able to trade off of that during the time and gain success off of it. It shouldn't just be dictated by what we call a trading day.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, one of the things we brought up is that we'll after our general launch, we'll introduce a rating system, a Metafide rating, where it's going to show how precise, how early, how much you generate alpha into the system, and compare you globally to an index of all players. And we'll optionally give you the ability to share that on your profile and export it to LinkedIn. So that's going to be super exciting. People will be able to find you, and you'll have a record on chain of your success that you can show to people. So if you're going to want to be one of these people vying for one of those positions, we want to help the community prove its value, and we're going to make that available to people who are in our system and playing these market games too. So something pretty exciting. Another product that we'll be able to introduce to the world and the ecosystem, and again, just another way to help out the people that are generating alpha in our system. So something to look forward to there. Anything to add, Matt, before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just think it's a great way to utilize the current technology, source people while they're young and hungry and performing at their top. And we can undeniably say with this rating that this person is as good as they say they are. And, we could source the talent ourselves or help those other people get discovered out there.
Right. Yep. That's right. So until next time, join us on Discord, discord.gg/Fi-token. Find us on YouTube at Metafide, and then join us on X, Fi_AI. Make sure you're registered at the surge.metafide.io so you're on the wait list. And we're going to start letting people in very shortly. So stay tuned. Make sure you're in the Discord community. And follow X for more updates. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Take
See
care,
you on the
everyone.
next one. Bye.
Metafide is the only AI-powered Bitcoin prediction game where traders compete in real time to forecast BTC's price in a fast 1 to 5 minute round. Test your skills against global players. Take on 1x risk with the ability to win multiplied payouts and prize pots. The more accurate and early, the better the outcome. Pre-register now for early access to generational wealth.